Vieira, Warhol, he comes from Senegal. Vieira, Warhol, he saved us from Roy Ball. Hello, it's been a while, hasn't it? Certainly did enjoy the Euros until the end and have been enjoying Love Island. And whilst Palace briefly flirted with Nuno and Lucien Favre, we have decided to couple up with Patrick Vieira. And in this video, I will be going into Patrick Vieira's brief and short managerial career and digressing into the positives and the negatives of that short career and what it might mean for Crystal Palace. And of course, having a little look at the transfers so far and potential ones ahead. But back to the appointment of Patrick Vieira. How did I initially feel when it was announced? Pretty indifferent, to be honest. And I think that is the only way that you can feel. I don't think you can feel overwhelmingly positive, because I don't think there's enough to be overwhelmingly positive about in his brief and short managerial career. At the same time, I don't think there's anything to be overwhelmingly negative about in his short and brief managerial career. I think, you know, it's very much an intriguing appointment, and it seems that not just Crystal Palace fans are intrigued by this one. I think it's going to be one of the stories of the season, Patrick Vieira's first Premier League job. Why do I think he got the job? I think really a big factor in that was his time at Man City's academy. I think they spoke to quite a few managers, if you believe the sound bites that come out. And we know for a fact that they spoke to Nuno and Lucien Favre, but let's not talk about that. But I think there were a few more on top of that from what you hear. And I think he interviewed well, is the first thing that I would say. I think, well, when I say interviewed well, I think not just to Steve Parish, but to Dougie Freedman too, I think had a big say in this. I think he had to work alongside the ethos of Steve Parish and Dougie, who's been heavily involved in the building of our Category A academy, and also in our foresight into developing our under-18s and under-23 players that are coming through, and did so well last season. And I think, therefore, his time at Man City working in an academy was absolutely crucial to him getting this role. Then he went briefly to New York City, where he was very successful, but no disrespect to the MLS, I don't think that really transfers into the Premier League. And really, if you're going to get any meat on the bone of his managerial career, you have to look at the 2 and a bit years he spent at Nice, where there were positives and ultimately there were negatives. What I would say, having looked into his time at Nice, was that it was a tumultuous time. When he joined in particular because he liked the sporting director, and he also liked the president. And within a year, within not so long of him being appointed, that sporting director and president left the club. A new owner came in who didn't really support Patrick Vieira with transfers. In fact, as soon as he came in, he lost the midfielder, Seri, who was key. He also lost a key striker. And despite that uncertainty of losing the sporting director and president he signed for and not really being supported in the transfer market, Patrick Vieira did finish 7th in his first season, which with that in the background was deemed somewhat of a success. Then just to sort of highlight the uncertainty of this period further, the sporting director and president returned. And in his second season, Patrick Vieira actually finished 5th with Nice and qualified for the Europa League. So you stop his managerial career there. Well, he's had a very, very good managerial career up to this point, you could argue. However, it did fall apart in the 3rd season. I'm going to have a little look now at why that happened. I think one of the things as a Palace fan you're wondering is, what system is Patrick Vieira going to play? Well, you can't look at his time at Nice and find the answer, because it was clear that one of the problems that certainly the players seemed to find was that they didn't really know what system Vieira wanted to go with. And Wielan Cyprian, who played under Patrick Vieira, said after a 4-0 loss to Dijon in August 2018, said the coach hasn't yet found the best formula to get the best possible performance. And that indicated that perhaps there was some confusion amongst the players about how Vieira really wanted them to play game by game. And you do sort of worry there, is that the sort of confusion our players felt in the very brief spell under Frank de Boer? But I would say as well that actually a manager not sticking to one system isn't necessarily a bad thing for Palace fans. And Patrick Vieira himself said in 2018 in a French newspaper, I don't think any system is better than another. And he cited managers like Wenger and Antonio Conte. And when you think about Palace last season under Roy Hodgson, that was one of the frustrations, wasn't it? That we stick so rigidly to that 4-4-2. And there were times I didn't mind that 4-4-2. I thought it was a good formation in certain games, but we needed to switch between the 4-4-2 and the 4-2-3-1. And there were games, weren't there, like the one at home to Liverpool where we lost 7-0, but he still stuck rigidly to that formation. So a manager who switches between systems actually is quite appealing for me personally. What other problems did they have in that third season where Vieira ultimately lost his job? Well, this one's more worrying for me, is that they had a striker in Dolberg who did very well in the Euros, actually been linked with Palace. And one of the things that has been said is that he was starved of chances, that the team was devoid of creativity. Sound familiar? Well, that is exactly probably the reason quite a few Palace fans were happy for Roy to leave in the end, was the style of play, wasn't it? And to hear the phrase lack of creativity and that the striker didn't really get chances created for him isn't something you really want to hear, thinking really over the last few years that Benteke really, I know he had a really good end to the season, but over the last few years has probably been starved of service. So that is worrying. Although on the other hand, Vieira has said from the outset, as if to sort of mark his arrival, has said from the outset that he wants the team to create more chances. And that there seems to be a very, very strong indication from Vieira that he does want us to have more of the ball. So I guess it really is a case of us sitting back and watching whether that can transfer into how we play. I think what's really, really refreshing about Vieira is he has recognised that he made mistakes at Nice. He said that in a conversation with Arsene Wenger, an obvious mentor for him, that Wenger said to him, you are not a manager until you get the sack. And Vieira has also indicated that he has learned from his mistakes at Nice. So it could be that the negatives from his time at Nice are actually turned into positives for us, Crystal Palace fans and Crystal Palace Football Club in general, that he will apply those lessons into his time at Palace. And let's hope that he does. I think as well, if you look back on his 3 years at Nice, 7th, 5th, I think he was 9th when he finally left Nice. That's certainly not a Thierry Henry at Monaco, is it? So I definitely don't think he deserves to be written off by his time at Nice. But again, like I said at the start of this show, I don't think really you can be overwhelmingly positive. I think it is very much an intriguing appointment. But what we know is that as a fan base, we are going to get behind him. And certainly the indications from the players are so far that they are enjoying the training and things like that. I know they probably have to say stuff like that, but it definitely seems and feels like a different vibe, for example, to when Frank de Boer first came, where it's now well documented that quite a few players were quite uncertain early on in his training regime. I think the big positive for Vieira has already shown its head very, very early on in his management career, is that he will attract players to the club, in particular young ones. And we saw that in the last couple of weeks, that both Michael Olise and Mark Gahey have both said that they are excited to play for Vieira. And these young players probably grew up watching him play for the Invincibles. So it's definitely going to be an attraction there, not just for players potentially joining us and that have joined us, but for players actually in the current squad. And you think about Wilfried Zaha, will him actually allegedly being a fan of Arsenal when he was younger now pay off for us? Because who would you rather play for? Patrick Vieira, captain of the Invincible team, or Mikel Arteta? I think we all know the answer to that one. So I think that's a big positive, Vieira, attracting players with his stature within the game. Although I have to say, credit needs to go to Dougie Freedman for his transfer business so far. And everyone almost Palace fans probably watched When Eagles Dare on Amazon, a fantastic documentary, and it really reminded you of how he built that playoff team, the likes of Mila Jednak, Glenn Murray, Yannick Bolasie. And it feels like, to be honest, with us shedding all of these wages, with all these players who have been released, that Dougie's finally got his chance, hasn't he, to build a new team. And I'm sure Vieira is having a say in that as well, and they're working alongside each other. And we know that Steve Parris as well likes to be involved. But it is funny, isn't it? The media, pundits, other fans saying we're in crisis because we were releasing all of these players, when as Palace fans we knew that actually we were releasing players on high wages, some of them injury prone like Sacco, and all good players in their day. But ultimately, really, we needed to refresh the squad and regenerate the squad, and getting these players off the wage bill has allowed us to begin doing that in those signings of Mark Gahey and, of course, Michael Olise. And there is more to come if you believe the rumours. Lookman is rumoured, and I think he would be a very good signing. I imagine the team next season to have Eze, when he's back fit, Saha and Michael Olise in behind a striker like Benteke, but Lookman would provide a different option. Also being linked this week to Edouard. I think that would be a tough one to get, but we do, of course, have this Paris Saint-Germain development coach who was at Paris Saint-Germain for 5 years, who has worked with Edouard, so that might work in our favour. I'll just remind you, if you believe the media, Paris are in crisis, but we do have a development coach who worked at Paris Saint-Germain. I think it's going to run this Palace in crisis joke all season. I think as well, but for me, the crucial position that we need to strengthen, and I said it all of last season, is the central midfield. For me, if we do not get a midfielder with an eye for a pass, I don't see us progressing as a team. And I think really that's where things start to go wrong for Roy, is when we lost Yohan Cabaye. And I'm not saying we're going to replace Yohan Cabaye as a special kind of player, but since he left, we've not really, apart from Jairo Riddleworld, had a midfielder who can open up teams from. And I know we've got Eze, and I know we've now got Michael Olise, but they'll be sort of in more advanced positions. We need, for me, someone who plays a bit deeper to spray the ball around. And I am happy that we've been linked with Conor Gallagher. Was linked with us the season before, allegedly had a medical, and then we went with Batshuayi as our Chelsea loan. Probably a mistake upon reflection, although I do think Roy was a bit harsh on Batshuayi at times. But Conor Gallagher for me would be a very good signing. Also linked with Maitland-Niles, who I think would bring some young energy into that midfield. Luka Milivojevic and MacArthur, both good players, although Luka has regressed a bit in the last year and a bit, did pick up again towards the end of last season. But I do think we do need some young energy to complement them. So for me, I would be signing 2 central midfielders. What do you think? Who do you think we should be signing? What players should we be targeting? What positions should we be targeting? And what do you think about the appointment of Patrick Vieira? Let me know in the comments below. But it definitely feels exciting to be a Palace fan again, doesn't it? With the announcement of Vieira, the announcement of these signings, it feels like we've been awoken from a 1.5-year football coma. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, if you've liked this video, please press that subscribe button.